Welcome into Leafs Talk on the Sportsnet digital network. I brought in a Big J journalist tonight. I brought in Luke Fox, Luke Fox Jukebox on Twitter, to break down another Toronto Maple Leafs November win, Luke. We had a little pre-show meeting, pre-chat before the game. We both said that this was a prime situation for a potential Leafs laying of an egg, and it was the exact opposite, my friend. I am blown away. Why has this team stopped laying eggs completely? I don't understand what's changed, but it's completely stopped.
Yeah, they look fantastic. They are 3-0 in the Mac Hollowell era, which is really quite something. But yeah, back to back, Eric Shalgren in net, going up against Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and just dominating from the first minute. I mean, Mitch Marner scores in 40 seconds in, and they take a 3-0 lead and just they stomp the throat. Even at the end, like Michael Bunting, that effort,
Yeah.
setting up Matthews, and Matthews getting 3 even strength points. There's just a lot of positives to take away from this. But for me, the biggest thing is the fact that defensively, this team has been playing amazing since the Morgan Riley injury, like
Yeah.
all hands on deck. Just phenomenal team defense. The forwards as well. Like it's really impressive. Like Pittsburgh didn't really get that much at the net.
So, yeah, you said they're 3-0 in the Mac Hollowell era. I mean,
Yeah.
you could talk about the flip side of that. They're 3-0 without Morgan Riley. I mean, if you want to talk about the flip side,
Well,
right,
that's that was kind of the reference.
So I like it's been something that Bunkus and I have been talking about for a little while on this show now, and it's something that I just noticed. And I sent it a tweet, I think it was yesterday during the game, that there can't be a forward core in the NHL that's more disciplined defensively than the Toronto Maple Leafs are at the moment. It just seems that they have complete buy-in from top to bottom in their lineup, really, from all their elite forwards, from all their sort of grinder forwards. Their commitment to defense in their own zone. I'm blown away by how hard and how drilled in these guys are at the moment.
Yeah, I'd say credit Sheldon Keefe, right?
100%.
The fact that like every time we have a scrum with him, he's been harping on the defense. So I'm sure it's like that in all the team meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a real reversal. Like this is something that Mike Babcock was talking about
I know.
when these guys were kids, and you just wonder like when it's going to click. But this season, more than any other, it really seems to have sunk in, and it's a really positive development. I mean, it makes me think about what happened with the Tampa Bay Lightning and all those years that they had, and they were this high
Mm,
flying offensive team, and then finally something switched, and they started playing more committed team defense, and we're starting to see a little bit of that with the Maple Leafs. I mean, it's a really positive development, and I do think there's something in human nature of when some of your best guys are down, like with Brody, Riley, and Muzzin
100%.
all out. There's just like other guys step up. I mean, we see it when Austin Matthews is out for a few games with an injury. All of a sudden, Tavares, takes the team on his shoulders, and I
Mm-hmm.
think the rest of the team is rallying around these injuries and have stepped up defensively. And it also helps when you get the lead early and you're playing
Yeah.
with the lead most of the game. That helps too.
So it's interesting you mentioned all those guys kind of out. And I think I was talking about it off the top with you about them laying eggs and them sort of stopping doing that. I think their sort of internal excuses to lay eggs have been completely stripped by the injuries to their back end, right? Like legitimately their three best guys in the back end they're out for extended periods of time. Who knows how long the oblique is? We don't know with Morgan Riley, and we don't know if Jake Muzzin will ever play again. Like they're
Yeah.
long-term things. So I think they probably all know that, listen, if we don't play the way we're playing right now, we're probably going to lose a lot of games. Like they need this defensive commitment. Hey, credit to the guys in the back end. Like we can get into it a little bit later, but if they don't have this defensive commitment from the forwards, the games don't look like this. There's just way too much pressure on guys like Mete and
Yeah.
Call and Hollowell and even Sandine and Liljegren. Like I know they're a little bit more developed, but if the pressure was on them more than it is right now, that wouldn't look as good as it does.
No, you're absolutely right. They responded really well. Now, that said, there were some shifts where I got nervous for Hollowell and Mete.
Mm-hmm.
Like that pair, I would not
Mm-hmm.
trust
Yeah.
over a prolonged
No,
period of time.
agree. Bit of a heart attack.
Yeah, there's some white knuckle moments.
Yes.
And what we haven't mentioned is really it probably the Penguins probably should have got 2 goals. I mean that
Mhm.
was a bit of a quick whistle, loose
Yeah.
puck behind Shalgren. But yeah, no, the defense has been phenomenal, and the bottom six has taken a huge step. Like the first month of the season,
Oh
the
my God.
bottom six was getting caved in
Mhm.
something ridiculous, and they're finally starting to get some traction. I mean, they're not scoring a bunch. Holmberg got his second tonight, which is nice to see. Nice shot too.
Mhm.
But the production isn't coming. But at least they're not getting caved in the bottom six. That they're having some positive shifts, and then when the big guys go over the boards, there's some momentum to build on. So I think that's a really positive development because that was something that I saw in the Leafs as a big kind of Achilles heel is the fact
100%.
that their second and third lines were getting worked. And tonight it was the Penguins bottom six, got caved
Yeah.
in. And it's a really nice turn here that we're seeing.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like, I sent out a tweet during the game tonight saying that I didn't think I'd live long enough to see the Leafs own Sidney Crosby because, like, the last two games against the Leafs, they beat the pants off him there. And Murray's when he came back from injury, and what was he -4, -5 in that
Yep,
game?
dash four,
And
dash
I don't
four.
know.
Yeah.
I didn't look at it tonight, but I don't think he could have been much better tonight. It's probably a couple, maybe -2. I didn't really look, but like. He doesn't seem like he's liking playing the Toronto Maple Leafs as much as he used to early in his career because from the mid 2000s on, it was pure domination. So it doesn't look like he's been enjoying it as much. So,
Well, did you see him kicking the bench
yeah,
on
did he
that
hurt
on
his
the
foot?
Marner goal? I wonder.
Because
They
he went
mentioned on the
down.
broadcast.
Yeah, yeah,
They mentioned it might have been an equipment thing. So
yeah,
he went back twice. He
yeah.
left and went to the room, but he was kind of losing it
I
there
know.
on the Marner goal because it was a brutal line change. I think he got off in time to avoid a dash, but he probably
Good for
should have
him.
got one there. It was just a just a
Veteran move.
yeah, just a bad line change.
Yeah,
But you don't usually see him show that much emotion,
never.
like whatever in a November
No.
game first period. And they were on a 5-game win streak coming into this. It's not
Yeah.
like the Penguins were slumping.
So I wanted to bring up Marner with you because now it's 16 game point streak. Is it 18? That's the record for the Leafs with Eddie O and Sittler that have I think it was that they were
Yeah,
saying. Kelly Root.
yeah. I think one has
Kelly.
18, one has 19, or one has
Okay.
17, one has 18. Yeah.
Kelly Rudy in the pregame was a little bit. He was like, I don't. I just want them all to tie. I was like, oh, how sweet is that? That's but I love Rudy. He's just it's such a positive guy. I appreciate it in this world of negativity. But I don't remember. I know he's had some incredible stretches where he's had huge point totals. Like I remember was it last year he had the 13 game streak where
He
he
had
had
a
20
30.
where it was
Yeah.
28 points.
Yeah, he had a 13 gamer. And I
Yeah.
think in the last 30 years, only 5 people have had 2 13 gamers in the same calendar year. And Marner's
Jeez.
one of them. Yeah,
That's
like
incredible.
it's a rare feat what he's
So
doing.
so I like last year it was just the offensive explosion constantly. Like it was 3, 4 point nights. I remember him and Matthews at a point last year. It was just a joke some of the nights. But this year, the domination in all facets of the game has gone to another level for me, Luke. It's just I know he's always been good in his own zone. I know he's always been good on the penalty kill. I know he's always been good on the power play or whatever. Well, maybe not so much on the power play, but in most facets of the game, he has been really, really elite. But this year, it seems to me that it's gone to another level in all facets. Like it's just really, really gotten kind of silly so far this year.
Yeah, and he's has at least 1 point in 21 out of 23 games
Yeah,
played. Like
that's pretty good, I think.
the consistency is ridiculous. No one else is, been that consistent. Even Connor McDavid's had more
No.
games where he just hasn't registered a point. But the thing that stands out to me is something that I talked about with his buddy Matt Martin when the Islanders were in
Yeah,
town
yeah, yeah.
earlier
Yeah.
this week.
Mhm.
And he said no one controls the pace of play like Mitch
Mhm.
Marner. And usually we talk about defensemen like a Victor Hedman or someone like that,
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
or even Letang when he was
Yeah.
in his prime. Like you talk about defensemen as controlling the pace of play. Eric Carlson does it sometimes. But as a winger, you don't usually hear guys who kind of run the game and control the tempo, but he does it. I mean, it's just like he's like the quarterback when he's out there. Like you just notice him, and yeah, he's really in the zone right now. It's good to see.
It's interesting. The controls the pace of play. I always think of like a point guard, like Chris Paul or somebody in the NBA, a guy that if he's going fast, the game's going fast. Like I watched a bit of the Raptors game before the Leafs tonight. They got a nice win over Luka Doncic with nobody in the lineup. But a perfect example of that controlling the pace of play is Luka Doncic in the NBA. A guy who seems like he goes like he's so slow. He looks like a bag of milk out there. He's barely moving, but the whole game goes at his pace. It's crazy. So I kind of feel like Marner goes kind of like that. If he's going fast, the whole game kind of speeds up, and if he slows it down, the whole game kind of that's good insight from Matt Martin, who didn't he play on a line with him for a little while? The M&M was it like the M&Ms?
Triple M
yes, line. Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow, that was Babcock. That was a weird time, buddy. So speaking of Babcock, a guy that wasn't one of his favorites, and a guy that I want to give some appreciation to because, everybody's been piling the praise on Mark Giordano through the stretch, which I think he deserves. He's 39 years old. He's been just out. I can't believe how much he's playing and how good he looks. It's crazy that he signed for $800K. What a godsend for the Leafs that is. But I do want to bring up Justin Hall because I think he's been a pretty big whipping boy in this city, myself included. He's an easy guy to pick on. He's not the smoothest guy out there. But I saw Kevin Papetti tweet before this game, maybe earlier today, that he hadn't been on for an even strength goal in I think 4 games, or 3 games. Like it's been really written. He's been playing 23, 24 every night. I'm impressed with his turnaround because it was pretty bleak earlier this year. But man, he's had a nice turnaround here, and he's been a really positive contributor to the Leafs in this turnaround.
Yeah, he was fighting confidence big time. I mean, we saw Rasmus Sandin go through a stretch like that too, but especially like when he didn't have the puck, like he was always getting in the shot blocking lanes and getting his stick in the right place and killing some penalties and doing some things like that. But it was more like when the puck was on his stick, he seemed to have lost all his confidence there in October for quite a long stretch. And I mean, I was at a bunch of games where, or at least a couple games where fans started turning on him. And
the Flyers game,
I
was at that Flyers game where he had one like shift.
Oh, one shift. That was
oh my God. It honestly looked like he was playing with a road hockey ball. He just couldn't reel it in. And I was up in the greens, and they were not pleased up there. There was some yelling, there was some booing. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, but the point is he's due some praise because he's turned this around. He fought through a stretch where he wasn't playing that well, and now he's logging a ton of minutes. The PK looked good. Like the Penguins power play, I don't know. It wasn't doing it for me tonight.
No.
You'd think they'd have it dialed considering how long those guys are used to playing together. But yeah, let's give Justin Hall some props because he has been playing well, and this is kind of like make or break. I mean, when these injuries started, when the Muzzin injury news came out that he might be done, Carl Dubas said something along the lines of, "This is a good thing because then you see who can handle it and who can't." Yeah. And in my mind, I was like, maybe Justin Hall is not one of those guys that can handle it because he's had a rough go here. But to his credit, he's flipped it around and he's been a really important part of this defense. He's lived up to the extra minutes, the extra responsibility. I mean, he's getting hard matchups now too.
100%.
He's not sheltered at all. I mean, they're trying to shelter the Mete Hollowell pair that like
for good reason.
For good reason. But all of a sudden, you think before he was struggling a bit. Now he's facing harder competition. Maybe he's going to get really exposed, and he has held his own. So good on him.
So it's interesting because when he was really going through that stretch, we talked about it with Kipper and Borney about how you couldn't, like, there was a time where he needed a break. He needed to sit down, and they had no one to give him a rest. No. Like there was just no one to give him a blow. And them not having somebody to come into the lineup maybe was a blessing in disguise for him to be able to play through it and find himself because, boy, it was bad there for a while. And I remember him kind of over his career with the Leafs going through these little stretches where, he's really fighting it confidence wise and he's really having a tough go. And then he kind of pulls himself out of it, but he was pretty deep into one there. I didn't know if he was going to be able to pull out of it. So credit to him. So yeah, because him, Giordano, it's just been a really crazy that's their top pair, and they've just that they haven't missed a beat. So I'm impressed with that.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly, and Villiger and Sandin too. Their minutes have gone up, and I think they've responded well. Sandin looks good on PP1. Like,
yeah. So I have another thing that I want to bring. I have a couple more things for you quickly.
Sure.
So Yarncroc has really had by far his best 2 games as a Leaf since he's been elevated to that line. And I'm trying to figure out, Luke, and I don't know if you can help me, if it's just because he's playing with one of the best players in the world right now and Mitch Marner is making him look good, or is it the fact that the sort of promotion to play with some elite guys has gone to his feet? Because he really seems to have found himself on that line in terms of he knows what his role is, digs the puck out for those guys, kind of goes to the net, can shoot it a little bit. But I'm battling between him getting better, or it's just Mitch Marner. I could play on that left wing right now and tuck a couple in, because it's a hard battle to find here.
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit of both, and I'd throw in a third thing, and that is no one has stolen that spot yet. Like poor Alexander Kerfoot, right? Man. Can't finish a play. No. Nick Robertson in and out of the lineup, struggles to make an impact when he's in the top 6 outside of that Dallas game where he was the hero. Like
Tracos no was right. They should have traded him.
Tracos was right. but no one is like the opportunity is there. So I think he looks good because one, you're starting to notice him. He's potting a couple. The bar was kind of low because no one else had really seized it. So I think that plays into it. And I'm sure for the guy, you're getting dressed, you see your name is on the lineup board next to Tavares and Marner. You might feel like you might have a little extra pep in your step for that 100%. Game. If you're instead of, you're with David Kampf for Holmberg, right? Like you're going to get a little more up for it. So I think there's an element of that too. And that you're playing with good players. I think you're going to look a little better, but I don't like the idea of him, if they go into the playoffs and that's their second line and Yarncroc's there, I'd be a little nervous. I think you need someone a little bit better. I think, when the dust settles, he's probably a third line guy. But in this short sample, he's filled in admirably. Yeah, he looks good.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think a lot of people are talking about, because now that the Leafs are kind of settled into this, looking like they're going to be cruising to a playoff spot, your conversation kind of flips into what are they going to trade for? Because it's we're on a death march against Tampa Bay in the first round here again. But I just like that spot is to me over even addressing the defense. Like you can find depth guys, you can find guys that you can mix in and out. The way that they're playing right now, it shows you that they don't need a stalwart defense. You get Brody back, you get Riley back, you're going to look a lot better. But to me, that is the spot. The left wing on the second line, where a guy you can find that's going to be able to put one in with those two, that's going to play a role well with those two. To me, that's the number one spot I would be looking to improve via trade before the deadline.
Yeah, I'm torn because I think they need that spot. And then I also think they do need like if they can do it, a top 4 impact type defenseman, like not a Connor Timmins. Like I'm talking about a serious upgrade in the top 4, preferably a guy that shoots right. I just
the Leafs and the rest of the league looking for that guy.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of a bit of a white whale, but there are some names. Like I am wondering about John Klingberg because one of the things about the Leafs is they're not getting a lot of offense from their defensemen.
Yeah, they're getting barely any.
They have 5 goals from their defense in total, and now what are
Liljegren got 2 in one game.
Yeah, and we're 23 games in. There's a handful of individuals that have more than 5 that play D. So, just because I think one of the things Leaf fans get caught up in if we're arguing about, their goals are down, and they are, then we need a forward. Well, defensemen can help generate goals if they're good if they're good puck
100%.
movers, right?
Yep, yep.
So, so he's one guy I kind of wonder about because he's obviously going to get traded somewhere. You chop his salary in half with some retention, and the Ducks and Leafs are often talking. That's a strong,
Yeah.
trade partner possibility. But yeah, so that's just one idea. But I think in a perfect world, maybe you make two trades and find a left winger and a defenseman.
It's funny though, because God, that's where your pro scouts make the money because it's so hard to tell. The Ducks stink. Like
Yeah.
they're a cellar dweller. They're an awful team. They play with no structure, and like figuring out how a guy that plays in that structure is going to come over there and play under Keefe and figure that all out. And he played for the Stars when they went to the final.
Well,
He was one of their best
in
players.
that
Like I
in the
get that.
bubble,
He was
he was
amazing.
fantastic.
It was amazing. I
Yeah.
know.
And he
And he,
showed a little bit of edge too.
yeah,
He's not just, all hands. Like he's a
that
big guy.
that's
Like,
a pure rental though, right? Because then
oh yes.
he's looking for the big money. So I don't mind that idea at all. I just that the Yarn Croc in the second line, like you said, going into the playoffs scares me a little bit. So last thing I wanted to bring up with you, and I guess it's a little bit of a negative, but
Okay.
I know they love Kerfoot defensively, but
Hmm.
would they ever sit him down for a night? Like
Ooh.
he's not get like when's the last time he scored? What is it just because he kills penalties? If I'm Nick Robertson, I'm like, I can, let me get in there, let me do one thing. I I know they probably never would, but to me, he's just doing nothing. They'd probably never sit him down, but it's just to me, it's a guy that I don't really notice most nights.
Yeah, he is. It's kind of a bit of a head scratcher because last season he was so consistent.
Mm-hmm.
His shooting percentage, if it wasn't a career high, it was up there. Like
Yeah.
he had a bit of puck luck, but he was you noticed him on many a night, like
Mm-hmm.
just as a solid role player. But something is just off. And I was thinking about like he took it really, really hard when he messed up in the Tampa series.
Oh yeah.
And I just wonder if a little bit of that has lingered over the offseason and into this season in terms of his confidence. Sheldon Keefe has mentioned that he's fighting it a little bit, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, why wouldn't it, right? He's got one
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah.
And it's not like he hasn't had chances. He had a penalty shot in Anaheim. He's had some breakaways, had some
Yeah.
odd man rushes. There's been times he's been right at the crease. It just can't finish. But as far as healthy scratching him, I don't see Sheldon Keefe doing that. He's like a member of the unfit, like he doesn't wear a letter, but he's a member of the leadership group,
Mm,
right? Like he's
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 in there.
he's core adjacent.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, he's
Well,
and he's like tight. He's got pretty big presence among the boys. He's one of the
mm,
guys.
yeah.
So it would, but if we're basing it on performance, it wouldn't be the craziest thing to give him a jolt.
Yeah, like listen, I know they're probably not going to do it, but it just to me, I'm looking at that ticket that he's making, and the Leafs have so much value right now from guys that they're like. Just think of the contributions they're getting from guys that are making 900, 800K with Giordano, the bottom half of their lineup, Zach Aston
Bunting,
Reese, Bunting,
Camp,
Camp,
yeah,
like all
yeah,
this incredible value. And then you look at what you're getting from that 3.5, and you're like, man, if they could just you think of what they could get for that money, and it's a frustrating spot for him to be in. I'm sure he's thinking about it too. It's a contract year for him,
contract
right?
year,
Like
yeah,
he knows he's squeezing the stick tight. He's probably if he continues to play like this, he's not getting anywhere near 3.5 for his next contract. Like he's fighting for
no
a
way.
million for his next contract. So it's a tough time for him. I just wonder if maybe a night off, just maybe see the game from above, just kind of give yourself a reset because it's just not going for him. He's just kind of like I think he had a couple good reads tonight, maybe where I was trying to notice him a bit, a couple good passes, but man, it's not a lot going on for a guy that's making 3.5.
No, there's not. I don't think it's a bad idea to do that. I just think Sheldon Keefe's track record is
Yeah,
he's really loath to healthy scratch guys that are kind of regular guys. Like even Justin Hall when he was going through it,
yeah,
right? He
never did.
never did,
Yeah,
kept playing
yeah.
him, kept throwing him out there. So I'd still be mildly, I'd be pretty surprised if he did it, but I don't think it's a bad idea because
Mm.
something's got to give, and it's not like he needs to change lines. He's been changing lines all the time.
Yeah. He's played on every line.
He's played on every line.
I know. Like he's playing with, like he honestly played with all their best players for multiple
Yeah.
games. You think one to bounce in off your ass or something? Like he's fighting it. So I feel for the guy because I watched some Leaf stuff and apparently like he's their fantasy football like their guy that like organized the league and like he's part of the guy like crew.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and like when you're
He's
winning,
he's a really nice guy, like
for
good to
sure,
talk to,
and for
thoughtful
sure,
interview.
Harvard guy. And
Harvard guy.
it's
Yeah.
just like, when you're group, like you're one of the guys, your guy is adjacent, I guess you would say, and your team's winning every night and you just can't get a sniff. It must be so brutal.
Yeah.
Like
And you're
honestly,
not contributing. No.
no. All right. Well, that's pretty much it for me. Luke, you got anything else? Or are you all good, bud?
Oh, yeah, I think I'm good.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I wrote some stuff, but I think we touched on pretty much all of it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for,
Dominant performance. Like that was
yes.
a solid win by the Leafs. They're rolling right now. Rolling.
If you'd have told me that they were gonna go into the second best team in the league and then go into a matinee game in a tough barn and then go on a back-to-back with Erik Källgren in net and get 6 points all in regulation, I would not have believed you.
Yeah, actually, I do want to point out Erik Källgren. Last we saw him, he was the GOAT, and not in the good way.
I was at that game.
GOAT.
Yeah. I was at that game. I was not pleased.
Right, the giveaway just basically threw away a point. So really not, and he took it hard. Like he didn't even talk to us reporters after the game, and usually the goalie always does.
Yeah.
But I saw him in the room, and he was like broken up, right? Because he felt he let these guys down. So the little sentimental, nice little bounce back win for that guy.
Nothing
and we might not see
from him. So
no, but it's just nice that he got on the right side of the score sheet, and we might not see him a while because you presume Matt Murray's going to start the next game, and Samsonov's starting to come back. So we'll see, but at least he goes.
Matt Murray, we might see him sooner than we want to. You never know with Matt. All right, buddy. Hey, thanks a lot for joining me on a Saturday night. We'll talk soon. All right, bud.
All right, this was fun, Sam. Thanks.
Thanks.